welcome back to Chatting with Chaz. I am so glad you're here today. Let me reintroduce myself. My name is Chaz, and I'm the creative director and founder of Linen and Flex Co., a design firm and retail store based here in Roswell, Georgia. I'm excited to dive in today with my dear friend Daniel with Renew, Build, and Design. Daniel is a builder, custom home builder, renovation extraordinaire. We've been working together making homes beautiful for about 10 years.
10 years.
Meet my friend Daniel.
Good times. What's up?
I wanted to dive in and talk about all things renovation, building. You know, where do people spend their money? What do they invest in when they think about renovating their home or redesigning a kitchen? Or is it worth it? Do I just tear this thing down and start all over? We have a project that we're doing right now, and I ran into them this weekend, and she's like, we're really deciding, do we renovate everything or do we just start from scratch and build something?
Yeah, that's a big one.
It's a big one. It's a big question. And all these things are expensive and cost money. So we're going to talk about budget. We're going to talk about, where is the best bang for your buck with a renovation. So let's dive in.
Okay.
So one question we get often when someone calls our office and they say, hey, we would love to do a renovation, I would say, yes, we do that. That's what we do. However, I need a great partner, which I have found in Daniel. He is one of the people that we use and companies to build beautiful homes and renovations. But there's lots of questions, and we always start with budget. We talk about, okay, you want a kitchen? Let's talk about your budget. And that's where the conversation starts, which makes people uncomfortable sometimes, but it's a necessary conversation. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's a good point. When we're talking with customers, especially that first phone call, and they're like, tell me about your budget, you can kind of feel them a little bit get uncomfortable, like they gotta hold their cards close to their chest.
Yes.
It's kind of like, it feels like a game. Like they don't want to tell you your budget. Let's say the budget's $300,000 on a good renovation,
right?
But they don't want to tell you that because they think you're going to spend it all really quickly.
Correct.
When really we're trying to gauge, one, are you realistic with, can it be done? Because if what you're wanting can't be done, then let's have the conversation now and be able to see how can we maximize your investment. But yeah, so I would say most contractors are not trying to scam you. Now some of them are. If you get that weird vibe,
and they do have to be careful.
If you get that weird vibe from a guy or a girl, that's just like they're trying to take me, then obviously be careful with what you tell them, but and get a couple quotes.
Always good. Yeah. So do you always say, I know you do, you say, get 1, 2, 3 quotes and then kind of look there.
Yeah.
And then you can really see. One thing I always say when we go to contract with you, when my client goes to contract with you, is I say, he's trustworthy. He is giving you a quote, and this quote is sustainable. It's not going to change 10 times unless you do a change order. And that's one thing that I like, because if I'm bringing you in, my name's connected to it, and I know you're not going to play games with them. And I think it's super important, again, this is our world, that when you choose a contractor, they have to be trustworthy. It cannot just be about the bottom line price. Because when it's about the bottom line price, there's normally upcharges along the way. It's a red flag.
Man, yeah.
Would you agree?
I have a friend who, a pretty close friend who had asked me, hey, what do you think about doing this project? And I kind of gave him a ball. It was sort of a ballpark. I could probably do that for, gave him a number, and it was a very casual conversation. And he's like, hey, I heard from him, a few months later. And he said we ended up using this guy because he was had this connection or whatever, and a year and a half later they were still not done with the project, and they'd spent double of what he had said, even over what I had said.
Yes.
And so it was one of those sad scenarios.
Unfortunate learning experience. That's one tip I would say to our viewers is make sure you ask people, get reviews, ask people about the contractor you're bringing in. I know that you have a stellar reputation, and that is important. And there's a lot of weight in that. There's a lot of value in that. So trust is important. Trust with the designer, trust with the builder. Okay, so let's talk about the market has kind of slowed a bit. It looks like maybe it's coming back. But I noticed the design trend was people staying in their homes because nobody wants to buy a house right now because of interest rates. And so they are taking their home and they're creating the home that they would have loved to bought or built. So coming into this climate with the economy, where can they invest in their home to kind of give them a little bang for their buck when they decide to sell when the market changes?
Yeah. Well, okay.
Where do you put your dollars?
So it really starts, and kind of back to our conversation about the budget, is it really kind of starts with how much do you want to invest at this point? Because if you say, I want to spend $10,000 to say, okay, your best bang for your buck is going to be painting.
Yes.
Paint your rooms and make them fresh. Maybe, or maybe swap out your area rug and get a couple of new chairs or something to make it feel better. But painting is going to be your cheapest.
Still expensive. People underestimate an interior of a large home. Let's say 3,000 square foot home. They're going to spend
maybe $25,000.
Yeah. Everyone thinks that it's like 5,000. So that's a good tip. Yes.
But yeah, painting. But if you're saying, hey, I really want to make this house to where I want to live in it for the next 5 years and still be able to get an investment out of it. Well, then maybe you might be considering spending, $100,000 or $200,000 and doing like a kitchen or a main level or something like that, where you're investing a little bit more in your home. You can be able to enjoy it. But if you're going to be moving in a few months, I would do as little as you can.
Right.
But if you buy new furniture, that's great. You get to take it with you.
Yes.
That's kind of nice.
It is kind of nice. I think that's a good, yes, from me. Yes, buy it from London and Flax. I think that is a good gauge. If it's a quick, we're going to, at the end of the year, we plan to move, or the kids graduate and we're going to sell the house once the kids graduate. We get this big, like, we have a graduation party. We want our house to be perfect. We're saying paint it, get some fresh pillows, maybe a couple of rugs, you're good to go. That next level, I think, is where you go into the kitchen and you have that family that I feel like we've done a lot of. That is like, listen, this kitchen has been like this for 20 years. We're ready to invest. Our budget looks like 150, 200, 250,000. And that's when we start in the kitchen with a budget like that and then kind of go to the first floor. Would you agree?
Yeah.
200,000.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the house. I mean, some can be around there, some can be more, and some could be even a little less. It just depends on
everything is relative.
Everything. Yeah. But it is, you mentioned expanding into the house. Like, the kitchen is usually not self-contained so much because, if you're doing your kitchen, if you're staying within your exact footprint and you're just replacing or refreshing your cabinets and countertops and backsplash, that's possible. But most of the time when we're doing kitchens, we'll try to find the best version of that space where you come in and say, well, this could be awesome.
Yes, this could be awesome.
Which tends to happen, and so you make your kitchen a certain way, and that the layout changes slightly, which means now you probably have to redo your floors.
Yes. And
then we're probably going to have to refinish your floors on the whole main level. Well, that becomes a domino effect. Now we're probably going to paint the rest of the main level.
Yes, and then we have to do your stairs because the stairs transition from the main floor. And then, when we're doing your stairs, we need to do your railings and your handrails.
And then your fireplaces, your next. It's the mantle. We're like, I don't like my mantle and my surround. All these eucanthus leaves and stuff like that.
Yes.
Let's change that up a little bit.
And then it's the bookshelves flanking the fireplace. And then the next thing you know, it's the beams. We're going to add beams to the vaulted ceiling. And it's the proverbial snowball effect.
Order,
So you have to be prepared. A client needs to be prepared to go into it and be reasonable, but also have priorities. Like the priority is our kitchen. And the difficult thing is a lot of homes are open concept. So that's where it gets tricky because we'll start in the kitchen, but yet we have to touch the floors and everything you just mentioned. And that's where the price escalates. One thing you and I have said is we'd rather a client to wait 2 years and save for it than try to do it cheap. Because I feel like they're not going to get what they're actually wanting, what they see in their head. And they're like, no, this is what we have. Can you do this? And sometimes we'll decline a job and say, no, it's just better if you just wait a couple of years, save a little bit more, or maybe you move in 2 years. So how do you get a client to realistically look at the budget and make that decision of, you know what, maybe I need to sell this house. There's not enough. If I put 250,000, I'm out of the neighborhood, right? I've exceeded what it's worth, the value. How do you have that conversation? Because I know we've had that conversation with clients. It's always tricky.
Yeah, it is, and that's during those first few meetings where you come up with this concept and you're like, it's going to be this amount of money. And there's a moment where I have a conversation with the customers to say, okay, we've kind of got this plan. This is you're going to invest this much money. I want to say, you're putting in $300,000 or $400,000. You're still going to have your 8-foot ceilings. You're still going to be your next door neighbors aren't changing, this and that. So the value of your home is going to be still a little bit. Is there pressure to keep your value, lower? If not, then that's great. Some people live in neighborhoods where you could spend as much as you want to and never outbuild the neighborhood just because of where it is. Yeah. So there is that tension, but it's not easy to answer. But I know some people will ask their realtor friends and say,
yes.
Hey, what would you suggest?
That is a good point, that there are certain things you really can't change. And if you have a home that has 8-foot ceilings, that's a challenge. And that's something to consider. Or if you're short bedrooms and you just can't exceed the property line, there's just...
Right.
Sometimes it's like, this is just not going to be the home of your dreams, and being realistic with that. All right, let's talk about trends in renovations. I mean, everybody loves a scullery right now. Is that like a trend? Do you think it's here to stay? I mean, what do you think about that? Let's talk about the top 3 things people are wanting when they bring you in for a renovation.
Gosh, they do love sculleries right now.
I know, it's a thing. I want one. I mean, I think it's very clever.
It's kind of awesome, and it's I kind of have mixed feelings about it though too. It's like they want to have this the sort of the fake kitchen and then the real kitchen where they actually do the work. But it's definitely cool. People love the idea of having a place where they can prep and a place where they can entertain at the same time.
Explain what it is, because not everyone knows. It's kind of a buzzword right now. It's all over Instagram. It's kind of the newest thing. Explain to them.
So imagine a pantry, a big, huge pantry that you also had appliances in, and a sink where you can not only store your food but also prep it and get it ready, and then basically you can bring it out to
the pretty kitchen.
Yeah, pretty kitchen. Yeah.
Yes.
Like what's that? My kids like that. The Trolls, like the scullery maid. She works in the scullery where where the guests don't actually hang out. Yeah. So the scullery is sort of people call it dirty kitchen, or even butler's pantry is another thing people are calling it.
I feel like we're seeing less butler's pantries and more sculleries, and I like them. I mean, we did one where the doors look like cabinetry, so it's like a surprise when you open it, and then you're in this beautiful back kitchen. Do you think there's value in those?
I don't think it's a critical thing to have in a home, but it depends on a home. Like they're becoming an expectation at some level.
I feel like they are becoming an expectation. That's a good point. How big are they generally?
The biggest one we've done is probably 14 by 16. So
that's big.
So a big. The size
it's like
of
2 kitchens.
Right. It literally, two kitchens back to back is what it was. But most of them aren't that big. Most of them are sort of a lot of times like galley style, where you've got a sink on one side, or maybe it's just one-sided scullery. Some people cook in them, and some people just want a big.
They just want them.
Big
they just want them because they're a thing.
Big schmancy pantry.
I like them because I feel like I don't like to see appliances on the counter, and so I want my kitchen to look really clean and beautiful, and then the mess, so to speak, all the appliances, all the containers, the mixer, everything's back there. That's kind of why I like them. I love a scullery with a window. I just think it's very European.
Yes.
Let's talk about design. So top 3 things. Let's say scullery. 2 other things that you think people are like, I need this. They're building a home with you or a renovation.
People love the outdoor spaces, like their outdoor kitchens and outdoor fireplaces and porches, things like that. But inside the home, the scullery is a big one.
Costco door.
Oh, Costco. Yeah, the Costco.
I love that.
Costco closets.
Yes.
Yep. Storage. I'm in the works of trying to build a cabinet for my house.
At your house?
For
I love it. It's just it's things that make life easier. I think that's one of them.
Simplicity. Laundry rooms have become
a big deal.
Rooms. It used to be a laundry closet was completely
acceptable,
normal. Whereas a lot of the newer homes, if it's not more of a room, it's less common. So seeing a lot more people doing multiple washer and dryers even too.
Yes, I love that. Are you seeing it in the primary, like in the primary suite, you have your own washer and dryer, and then where's the other space? Just in the normal laundry room?
Sometimes in the laundry room, and then in the primary closet. But other times having like 2 sets of washer dryers.
I love that.
And I've been seeing these the combo washer dryers lately. Have you seen those?
No,
we haven't done one yet.
No.
But it's a washer that dries your clothes, and so they started out. They're more common in Europe, but they were big. They started as a trend in like tiny homes, but yeah, it's awesome. You don't have to set your timer to remember to go back and put them in the dryer.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Okay, that's big.
So that's what I want to do in my next house. Like do like a couple of those.
Have you built your dream home yet?
No.
Because I know you did build a home.
No, I've remodeled every home we've been in, and I really enjoy the renovation. I like finding the best version of a place. But I'm hopeful. We'll see. If things work out, would love to one day build a home. And
so if you build your own home from the builder himself, what are your must-haves? Like, what is your dream?
Oh, great question.
That's a good question.
I want a ton of glass, lots of windows. I mean, you've seen this too. I mean,
yes.
Actually, if I were designing a kitchen for myself, I'd go one wall that was just floor to ceiling glass, well, countertop to ceiling glass.
Yes.
And then, same around it, just light from multiple angles. Mm-hmm. I think I actually prefer a little bit smaller of a footprint.
Yes.
Because one, I don't want a huge house to take care of, but two, a smaller footprint allows for better light to get from the outside to the middle of your home.
I love that.
A lot of these bigger homes have a hard time getting natural light in the middle.
Because all the hallways.
Sections. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Makes sense.
So I'd want that, and then my wife and I really want like a rooftop patio.
That would be very cool for residential. You don't really see that in residential. Uh-huh. I love that.
So wherever we would build, you have to have a pretty decent view. So.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Let's briefly, you touched on it, windows in your kitchen. We're not seeing a lot of uppers in cabinetry. Are you still seeing that? It seems like people just don't want to see the uppers. They just want to have a beautiful range, a beautiful hood, and then not as much cabinetry.
Mm-hmm. Uppers have become a little bit less important. People used to consider those the primary storage, where now we're seeing people utilize drawers on the bottom.
Love drawers.
You can put your plates in there. You can put your pots and pans.
Yes.
It's not critical to have doors as much anymore.
Right.
So definitely seeing that. Fewer uppers. There's still usually areas in kitchens where
some homes you just have to.
You have to. You need it. But yeah, that's interesting. That has become a trend.
Yes. We get a lot of questions about kitchens. Tell me about countertops. What are you seeing the most? Are people still using marble? Are people afraid of it? Are you using quartz? What are you using for countertops now?
We're still using a lot of quartz, mostly quartz. We haven't done marble much. Every once in a while, somebody will
normally with me.
Be
I
brave
love
enough.
marble.
It really is you. Yeah, you're the one that's brave enough to kind of go back to the classic of just saying, it's like we love natural, and I do too. I kind of like the nature of that.
Yes.
Occasionally we get some soapstone in there, but. We've seen a little bit of granite come back in the last couple of years.
I've noticed that too. Taj Mahal's having a big moment.
Mm-hmm. Taj Mahal, and then
honed,
leathered, black, dark granites are becoming more common. So,
which is good because they're more affordable than a lot of the marbles and even some of the quartz and. Okay, so leaving the kitchen, let's go. You talked about outdoor spaces. I know we've done a lot of outdoor spaces. I do think that is a trend that is here to stay. People want to be outside. They want to invest outside. And they love a screen porch. They love a fireplace. Still a lot of value to your home in doing that?
Lots of value. I mean, really, value is going to be different for every customer, too. If you don't like being outside, then it's not valuable to you.
Right. Well, that's a good point. That's true.
But yeah, especially the outdoor spaces that we're making now, they really do feel like you're home.
Yes, it expands your home.
Mm-hmm. And patio furniture's come a long way. Like y'all's outdoor stuff it feels like you're sitting in a living room instead of sitting in like this, the old like scratchy, like the old school wicker where it was like a hard to really get comfortable.
Right.
So that helps a lot. Like things like heaters, like patio heaters. Even the portable ones are great, but the ceiling ones that we've installed are really, really great. Fireplaces are beautiful. They're expensive, but if you can, if we can incorporate that into a place, it's awesome.
One of the things with you is when we do an outdoor space, really any space, we try to utilize, if we're doing a gas fireplace, we're like, okay, we've got gas for the grill, and you try to be very efficient with spreading, the gas or the electric, or can we do gas lanterns too? So we're going to have gas lanterns here, gas fireplace, gas grill. And I think that's really important, the planning of even your resources. Like, okay, we can do gas lanterns here. And I keep thinking of a client that we did, and I'm drawing a blank on their name. I know who they are. I can't say their name. But we did their whole interior. But they say their number one place in the whole house is outside. That outdoor fireplace that has the gas grill, the gas lanterns, the amazing fireplace.
That was a great.
And I think their whole neighborhood comes there and hangs out. I think they have the parties there. Okay, so now let's step into outdoor space. Super important. Bathroom, primary bath. I feel like kitchen, primary bath. That's where most of our clients go to spend their money. Would you agree?
Yes. Well, it's kind of what realtors have said over the years, what sells home. So yeah, having that primary bath in good shape. You're at your most vulnerable in your primary bath. So if you got to be getting ready and what all goes into that, the space is pretty important to be able to enjoy it.
One thing you taught me is you said when we were pricing out bathrooms, especially like a primary bath, they would be more expensive than I first thought, because I was like, wow, that's pricey. And you said you're still bringing in the same people. You're bringing in the electrician, you're bringing in the plumber, you're bringing in the same people you would bring in for a kitchen. You're bringing in cabinetry, you're bringing in tile, you're bringing in countertops. So the price was almost as much as a kitchen on some of the ones that we've done. And I couldn't understand it because the square footage was smaller, but you're like, we're bringing in all those same finishes. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So in a bathroom, if you take appliances out of the equation, your bathroom is your most expensive per square foot of your entire home. The most expensive square feet in your home.
It is.
Because tile's expensive. The labor for tile is expensive, and so you compare that to just having hardwood floors. Well, it's in some cases a fifth of the cost, depending on the tile that you choose. So
there's tile everywhere.
Yeah, and every part of the room is usually filled with pretty expensive stuff. A freestanding tub or a shower. Showers, you got your tile, your plumbing fixture.
Plumbing is expensive.
Plumbing
fixtures are expensive.
Yeah, and then your glass enclosure. There's less expensive ways of doing it, but for those bathrooms that you see out there in the magazine shoots, and you're like, oh yeah, we want to do that. It's like it just is.
People are shocked when we price out a primary bath because they think square footage. They think small, so the budget should be smaller. And when we talk about a larger budget, they're like, wait, what? So I think that's important that you should know that, because it is one of the most expensive things to design. Let's talk about the trends in the primary bath. What are you seeing? Are people doing the steam showers? Are they doing the enclosures with the tub and the shower together? The wet rooms. What are you seeing?
Ooh, yeah, seeing a lot of wet rooms. Where if you don't know what a wet room is, it's you got your tub basically inside a giant shower. So which seeing a lot of that, and which is a really pretty good efficient use of space.
It is.
We were working with like a 1940s house we couldn't change the square footage of it, but they had a limited amount of space. But using that wet room enabled us to get them really nice, custom.
I actually do think it's a really good design. I don't feel like it's a trend. I feel like it's very smart. Very wise use of space.
I agree with that. I'll say some people lately over the last few years have said they want to take the doors off the shower. I don't know how that's going to last.
Yes.
Some people like it, and maybe
it's cold.
I like being hot in the shower.
Yes.
So that maybe that is a trend to stay, but it's funny how people will ask that.
Yes.
Maybe it's I don't know.
I mean, I do think it's a great place to invest because it's where you start your day. It's where you end your day. I think that is a money spot. Age of the home. Does it play a factor in your renovation process? If you're like, you mentioned you did a house that's 1940s. So when you go into that home, is that something that you consider as you execute the renovation?
Definitely. There's a lot of, building has changed a ton over the last 100 years. And so like a house built in the 20s is way different than one built in the 50s.
Yes.
Different than one built in the 70s and 80s. Several things that come to mind, like plaster walls. If you live in a house that's from the 30s, you're probably gonna have plaster walls. And so it's going to be a lot of demo, a lot of weight, a lot more dumpsters that will be involved.
Do you feel like you would embrace the plaster wall? Or would you say when you step into a 1940s home, like, you know what, let's embrace this and just kind of make it the best 1940s home? Or do you look at it as an opportunity to let's gut this and modernize it?
Oh yeah, well it depends on the home. If it's awesome, if the wall is where it should be, but if we're taking out a wall, then it's just a little bit trickier. But if the wall is, some of those older homes are awesome.
So cool. Yeah. It's like you don't want to mess with them too much.
Yeah,
yes,
bring it back to life. Let's revitalize it. Make it new, renew it. Yeah. So it just depends. And then things like even as late as like the early 70s where you had a lot of cast iron pipes and that sort of thing. Cast iron will corrode from the inside out, and so it might look fine from the outside, and then you get into it. Oh, we have to replace all our drain lines now, and so those are conversations we have to have during that planning process. Here's what we've planned for an additional $3,500 to replace their drain lines and this and that sort of thing. So,
so many things to consider with a renovation. I mean, truly.
It is a little bit intimidating. It's kind of scary. Well, this is a home. It's coming from a livable state to it's not going to be livable for a while, which they should move out.
I did want to talk about that. So things to consider. They have to move out. When we talk about a renovation, they have to think about things like you have to bring everything up to code. Like some things cost money. Everybody wants the money to be spent with the beauty. But there's a lot of things with an old home that you're just fixing, electrical, plumbing, and it's a lot of money spent on non-beauty things. And the AC unit, insulation, and that's where you start weighing it out. This is money that is unseen but necessary, and it gets expensive with an old home. Bringing it up to code, getting it to where it's just livable. But okay, so now I just want to point that out. Like it costs money on the unseen things, and that's what everyone is always surprised. But they're like, "Well, I don't want a new AC unit." We're like, "Well, you need it."
That stuff is not fun to spend money on.
It's not fun. We want something pretty and shiny.
What?
Yes. No one likes that. So let's talk about they've committed. They're doing this renovation. We have done renovations where we've had the people stay in the home. And then you and I, through lots of headaches, decided this is no bueno. Now, what is the requirement? What is the highest recommendation, number one, with a renovation?
Highest recommendation, if you're painting a house, it's fine. You can live through it. It's still not going to be fun. No. But it is, if you're gutting any part of your house, leave. Please. If you can find a rental home. Sometimes some markets are tough to find a rental home. Like in Atlanta, if you got to find a temporary housing, it's not easy.
And no one wants to do it because it's more dollars. But it will save the project as far as it being a pleasant experience or the worst experience of your life.
Well, it also if a home is vacant, it also allows us to get done a little faster. There's fewer things, like we don't have to. There's just a lot of energy that goes into making sure a customer is comfortable during the renovation. So if it's going to be vacant, then our guys can show up early. We can work on weekends sometimes and just keep cranking things out. But when it's, hey, do you mind opening the gate Or
Yes.
I've got guys coming at 7:30. Is that okay? That sort of thing. It adds to it.
It adds to the stress. And I think our job is, of course, aesthetically making it beautiful, but also to keep the clients happy during a very difficult process, because your whole life is upside down. You don't know where anything is. In the early days, we would have them set up their kitchen in their basement if they had a basement. But that gets old really quick. And so the clients would get pressed, and they were pressing us like, you need to finish this. Well, our timeline hasn't changed. They're just kind of antsy and done with living in a basement and cooking out of a microwave. And so we realized that to set the expectation in the beginning that they truly would do best mentally in every way to exit the project, and going into a relationship with a contractor that they trust, so that they don't feel like they have to micromanage. And I think that's where sometimes a project goes off the rails. When a client, let's talk about that.
You're right.
Because if you're bringing him in, you need to have the trust, but you also need to let him do his job. And I think that's a huge thing to discuss, to truly hand over the reins, not be a micromanager, because it truly ends up backfiring on the client.
Well, it's tough. It is a little bit of unnecessary energy from a customer.
Yes.
Especially with ones that are living in the home. We had this phrase, we have a first to see principle. And let's say I'm walking the project at 4:30 and checking on the guys. Hey, you need anything? And I leave. And the guys leave something that doesn't look good, at 4:45. And the customer gets home from work and they're walking the project and they're like, that looks terrible. And all of a sudden they think that things are not going to happen. If they just knew that, if they trusted that I was going to come the next day and address it and say, hey guys, remember we talked about this, you need to fix it.
Right.
But it's energy. If they feel the need to run the project, and so they've got these spreadsheets. And hey, I've run a Gantt chart out for you to run your schedule. This could work, and this and that. So it's we got it. So trust your contractor. Now there's some crappy contractors out there too. So man, I wish there weren't, because they give us all a bad name. Yes. So there are some contractors that don't show up and manage. So that would be a good question for anybody thinking to do a renovation, of saying, hey, how often are you here on site, or how often is your project manager here on site? Just kind of setting those expectations, and probably try to get that in writing as far as an expectations document. Say, hey, do you check in at least 3 or 4 times a week, on your projects? I think which is a reasonable thing to expect of your contractor. Yes.
I do think it's such an important relationship, the client and the contractor, and that they do trust. And we've had a client that, they have a job and they do their job really well, but they think they do everybody else's job really well. And that's the thing. If everyone just stays in their lane, I'm sure they do their job great at AT&T, but this is a different job. And there is... Yeah. He didn't work at AT&T, but there is a way, and there is a skill set, and there is a timeline, and there is a schedule. And that's the one thing we always say is, we're going to go by the schedule. Yes, I know you want this because you have a party in Bunko coming, but there's a timeline. And so sticking to the timeline, and that's one of the things that I valued about our relationship, is I knew that if there was a schedule in place from Daniel, he would be on schedule. And so I could easily tell my antsy client, there's a schedule. And my job became putting them at ease, because they lived in the space. They're now getting antsy. Even though we said it was going to be 6 months, it's only 4 months. And they're like, when's it over? And I'm like, well, it's 6 months. So I think kind of getting ahead of it all really makes a project go smoother by having that uncomfortable conversation. Like, we would like you to move out. We would like to have complete control of the project. Again, we've collaborated. We've built a concept. You've approved it. Now let us do our job. That is best case scenario.
Best case scenario. Definitely. Yeah. It's funny. A lot of times we'll work with bankers, really mathematical, very precise, great. My wife is like that. I love her, and she's incredible. And that a lot of times that mathematical personality has a hard time with the ebb and flows of construction too. It's like, hey, this doesn't. I thought we planned for this. Why didn't the guy show up?
Yes. And things do happen.
Things happen.
And timelines do change.
Yeah, that's what I try. So I try to set expectations. Say, hey, now when we work with bankers like you, there is an expectation that things happen it's an equation. You do this, you do that, and this comes out. And it's not so much of an equation, but more of a here's our goal. I'm going to give you, at the end of the week, I'm going to give you a general schedule for next week. And it's going to be about 85% accurate. Some things are going to happen faster. Some things are going to happen slower. Some things are not going to come in like they're supposed to. And so there's a little, and we plan for that, out of just our experience. Like, hey, we know which subs we can kind of
we have a buffer.
Push a little bit of buffer. So,
the built-in buffer.
It is tricky.
Well, I think what they forget is that there are subs, and they think that they're independent. They're all your subs. And so they think that all these subs just exclusively work for you or for us. But what happens is a sub could be on another project. That project got delayed. So then it'll delay our project. And I think that's what clients forget is you're dealing with subs and you're dealing with, a kitchen cabinet installer. And if they're backed up, it can change the timeline. What are some of the timeline changes that you see that maybe are unavoidable, that people could have a little grace for their contractor that has to give them the bad news?
Oh, well, I mean, weather is
that's a great
thing.
One. Yes.
Because the outdoor trades, like framing, foundation, things like that, everybody's waiting on the same things and everybody's experiencing the same delays.
Yes.
So if there's 3 people in line and then there's a 3-day schedule, well, everybody in line is moving back 3 days, and if it rains again, it's just a domino effect.
Weather is huge, and no one has any control over it.
Super
That's
tough.
a big one.
Occasionally, we'll have material difficulties, like there was a season where we couldn't get plywood.
I remember that. Yes.
There's. And then the appliances thing. The supply chain has improved a good bit, but most of the schedule delays are simply because the plumber ran into an issue on the last job, and it's taking him an extra 3 hours. He had to go back in the morning, which means everybody else is getting bumped back.
Right. So let's talk about, you mentioned the delays, like with COVID, we had delays with appliances and all of that. Also during COVID, we had a spike in what plywood costs, what wood trim costs. Everything was inflated. Are you seeing that balance? I know that we had people that wanted to build a home, and they're like, we're going to wait until the supplies go down because everything was inflated. Are you seeing a change in that?
Thankfully, like commodities lumbers has come down.
Good.
Has come down from their height. I mean, they kind of bump back up and do that. But there's a lot of things that went up and then just stayed up because people, if people get comfortable paying that, there's no pressure to bring those costs down. If there's more competition getting in the market, more options, then that can drive the price down a little bit. But things like interior doors and windows, we really didn't see any price drop from there. And really, I mean, I know sometimes we encourage customers to save up more.
Yes.
There is a risk in doing that because, prices tend to just continue to go up steadily over time. So,
we have told our clients that too, that we see that we don't see the trend really changing. It just seems like it continues to rise. It seems like construction, it's more expensive now to build a house than it was 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, like the framing, probably a little bit less, but everything else is just as much or a little bit more. I mean,
would you say it's a good time to? You wouldn't advise anyone to hold off. Now's the time because they're going to continue to escalate.
Yeah, because I mean, I get a call every 9 months from our concrete company saying, "Hey, prices are going up another 7% next month." Right. So put in your order before January if you want to. But I've never gotten a call saying, "Hey, prices are coming down."
Coming down. Yeah. When does that happen? I know. Well, that's good to know because I have had those conversations with clients, and they're like, "Well, we're just going to wait for the market," and I'm like, "Well, we're not really seeing a change on our side, but construction is totally different." So I did want to ask that question. That's good to know because I think if we just know, we can make informed decisions and say, "Okay, now's the time to strike." So they've made the decision to strike. They're in a renovation now. as we build a quote, let's say like this lake house we're doing, and we realize this is going to be for everything you want for this renovation, we're basically having to rebuild the house with an exception of like maybe a wall.
A few things.
You know, how do you know when it's like we're putting too much into this home and it's better if you go buy another home? Like, how do you get to that point in that conversation?
Well, it's a conversation that you and I can't come to the answer to, because the customer has to decide that for themselves.
Yes.
You know, if that location is just, there's nothing going to ever be better than that, or they love their community and their neighborhood, or you know, the view can't be replaced.
That's what they're saying. They have a really amazing lot, and she's like, I mean, I just don't want to go find another house because I love this lot. And if you just are upfront with them, like, okay, but this is what it's going to cost, and you probably could go find a house that can give you all these things, but maybe you're sacrificing something.
Yeah.
The lot, the view, right? They just have to come to terms of sacrificing something.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, it's you're either gonna overinvest a little bit in the home because you love the spot, or you know, hey, let's explore other options. And so, matter of fact, I had that conversation with them and say, hey, are you sure you don't want to look at another property, and or rebuild, or you know, that sort of thing. So, and it came down to the lot, I guess, location, and I think that's a good place to put money in. If you love the location, you have a great location, you know, invest in it. And I mean, they're on the lake. Beautiful lake view, probably will be okay. They're not adding shoreline, so let's talk about square footage, like a price per square footage. I think people are like, well, if I want to build a custom home, what am I looking at? Is that too vague of a question to ask you? Like, yes, because
a price of a square footage for a bathroom.
I get asked that a lot, and it really is not possible to answer.
Everybody wants a bottom line number, and it's hard to give. So how do you do it?
It's a little bit of a tell me what you want, and I can kind of give you an idea, but like you could build a 1,000 square foot home for one number, and you could build the same exact home for 5 times as much or 10 times as much. Just depends on what you're putting in it. So really, it really depends. Just physics and dollars. So
it's funny because everybody wants the quick answer. Well, what's it going to cost me? Like, I'm thinking about this renovation. I'm like, it is such a vague question. I'd love to tell you, but then I know you're going to hold me to it, and I really don't know. So I always say you have to have a consultation. The builder has to come out. And then what they don't want to do is they don't want to wait the 4 weeks to put together a quote. That it actually takes so much time because you have to price everything out, literally from nuts and bolts to wood to plywood. And people don't really they underestimate the time it takes to put together a proper quote. Well,
it can vary so much. Like let's say you want cabinets. You're going to want paint grade, or you won't want stain grade. And if you want, let's say you want like walnut, if you're going stain grade, or do you want white oak?
Yes.
Okay, and if you want white oak, do you want quarter sawn or rift sawn or this sort of thing?
So many options.
And like the difference between those salt, I mean, it's like 4 times as much for the material
to get
rift sawn as it is to get, so it just depends on really what's important to them. Do you want to see that grain? And some people are really kind of open-handed about it. Say, that's not important to me. Well, that's great. Let's not let's not overinvest in that area. Let's find the areas that are really important to you, and do it that way. So
we find quite a bit of savings, like in cabinetry. I mean, you can spend. I mean, we had a quote. I won't even say it. Not with you, another company, but we had to shave off hundreds of thousands of dollars on cabinetry. People also underestimate that. Are you still seeing the trend of stained cabinetry, like white oak versus painted? I know where we try to save money is advised with painted cabinetry because you can have a big savings. The white oak trend is huge. What are you thinking on that?
Yeah, we're still doing a lot of stained cabinetry.
Same.
Still seeing a lot of that. Matter of fact, I think I've done stained cabinetry on every project in the last couple of years.
Yes.
That I can think of. Actually, no, we're doing one right now that has just painted.
To save money?
No, just a preference.
Just a preference, okay.
Yeah.
There is a lot of money to be saved there with painted cabinets. That's where we shave it down.
It can be, yeah. And And I think it's the cabinet companies that they just charge more because they can.
It's in demand. So, wood floors. Are you still seeing the trend with white oak? Wood floors.
People still love white oak, and it's a timeless look. I mean,
Right.
We're seeing lighter colors right now than we had, 10 years ago.
Right.
But, are you seeing it? What are you seeing? Are you seeing
we're seeing. White oak forever. I mean, I love it, but we're seeing it. Everybody wants the light floors. We're seeing a lot of that Scandinavian style, just very clean, minimal, and then a lot of white oak and a lot of stained cabinetry. But we're changing it in bathrooms and secondary spaces. We're doing painted cabinetry. So kind of the star of the show is the kitchen cabinetry, the primary bath, laundry room, scullery, and then everything else painted.
Nice.
Just to save a few bucks. What does the proper quote look like? Like, let's back up to the quote because it's in detail and it's a lot of work. And sometimes you'll do a quote and spend time, like weeks on end, and you never get the job. So tell us about what a proper quote should look like.
Well, a proper quote, there's some things that you can't quote out at the time, like what kind of countertop do you want? Because you're not gonna go through the whole design process of all the details before you can get a quote. Because if you're working with a designer now if you've already got all that planned out and you want a quote, I want this exact faucet, I want this tile and everything, and you can give that to your contractor. That's great. You can even get more accurate. But most of our quotes will include all the fixed costs, like all the things that are going to take to reshape it, like reframing, drywall, trim, paint, all those things. And then we also detail out things like what kind of paint are we using? Are we using Sherwin-Williams, like a super paint? Are we using like a Emerald? Or are we using a Benjamin Moore? It just depends on what some people care deeply about that. Some people like one or the other.
We care deeply about that.
And then allowances, like so general allowances, and you also want to kind of check the allowances too. Like, are my allowances okay? We've had that conversation. You said, are these allowances still looking good when we're out there sourcing? And we're like, yeah, we're still able to find good plumbing fixtures and countertops. Yeah, I've had some customers where they'll say, hey, we didn't get you, or you're not going to do the job. We gave this job to another project, and which is totally great. It doesn't bother me at all. But after looking at the other contractor's quote, I could compare and say, so just so you know, that's totally great. But I put in $3,500 for your tub, and he put in $1,500. So there's a few of those things where you just make sure you can get what you're wanting. I think that's a
really good point, to really look at the allowances, because like you said, if you go to look for a tub for $1,500, good luck. One that it looks good.
Yeah, there's a few really good.
We've done it.
Yeah.
But they're acrylic
but like tile allowances would be a good one. You can definitely go to Home Depot or Floor & Decor and find something for $2.30 a square foot. Right. And in some cases, that's a great opportunity to do. But if you're looking for like a designer high-end tile, and your contractor gives you that allowance of $2.30, you're not going to get that same look that you were going for, which might cost $30 a square foot, or even more, depending on what the selection is. So
it's true. It's kind of like when you go to get your haircut or hair color and you show a picture and you're like, I want to look like Jennifer Aniston. And then you show them the Instagram with all this amazing tile. And then they're like, but I found it at something like at Floor & Decor. And I'm like, yeah, that's a little different. I can't make that happen. I have done well at Floor & Decor, but sometimes the inspiration that they give you is not obtainable with the allowances that they have. Or, and I think a bad quote would be underestimated allowances. How would they know they have a bad quote?
If you're doing a full, like a big renovation and it fits onto half of a page, it's probably not very thorough.
Right.
I look back at some of in our early years when we were just figuring out what we were doing, and some of our quotes were literally half page long, and I was like, this should have been a 6-page scope
document,
or a 12, 15-page scope. And really, so are there enough details? Do they understand? Is a bad quote is not going to include some of the notes that you as a customer have given your contractor? Hey, I want to make sure that this countertop goes directly onto my windowsill.
Right.
If your contractor is not noting that on the scope, it might be a clue that he's not indicating the design that you're going for. So.
That's good to know. I think you need to be aware of the red flags. I think you should definitely get references. It's always good to know people that have worked with the person you're bringing on, ask to see their portfolio. I mean, there's so many things, but I do agree what you said. A lot of bad contractors have ruined good contractors' name. And that is why I always talk about you or some of the guys that I use. I only use 2 or 3 actually, because I know that they're trustworthy. I know they're going to stick to their scope, their timeline. And at the end of the day, we're going to wrap this up with a good relationship intact together and with the client. So super important.
If you don't know who to call, if you can avoid Googling contractors in my area, your chance of success is sort of up in the air there. I mean, even if there's some decent reviews on there. I mean, we all have seen those things where people
I feel like the reviews aren't even credible. It's just like
it feels a little bit discredited.
Yes.
But if you can get a reference, or just call around to your friends, take a few weeks or a month, and call some of your friends and say, who have you used?
Yes.
That you really did? I know y'all did a renovation recently, or. If you're new to an area and you don't have any friends, join a small group at church and start asking around.
Right.
Just take your time. That would be
time well spent.
It'll be time well spent to get a referred contractor as opposed to somebody you've just found online somewhere.
Yes. Let's talk about the relationship between the designer and the contractor, and how do you think it works best, in your opinion?
It works really well. It works best if they've done a project together. But there are I'm gonna talk bad about some of the contractors, but a lot of contractors don't like working with designers.
Oh, I've been on the other side of that. Yes, they don't.
Yeah, they are. They don't like, well, and rightfully so in some cases, because some designers will show up mid-project and the design phase never ends for them.
Right.
Because they're so creative, they're so talented, that there's so many opportunities to continue to design.
Yes.
And really, once things are really in full swing, the design phase has to end.
Yes.
Because we've been a part of projects before where the customer wants to keep pushing design, and it's
that ship has sailed.
It is. It's those projects that don't ever end. It's like,
right.
Oh, this is tough, and it gets expensive because
if
you add something 3/4 of the way through the project, it costs 10 times more than it would if you had added it at the beginning of the project. So, so one, knowing when to call the design thing, and just now let's have a good plan. Let's implement the plan. But then 2, having a contractor that has a little bit of enough humility to say, hey, I don't have to have all the good ideas, or also a willingness to try things, because a lot of contractors kind of get in that rut of like, this is the way we do things, and no, I can't. No, that's not going to work. I only use this type of, whatever it is. So having a little bit of humility and willingness to try things and take risks if they're competent enough to take those risks. Yes.
I think humility goes a long way for both designer and contractor, because there has to be a mutual respect. You know what? Daniel knows what he's doing, and I'm going to lean into Daniel. And then there has to be the same respect. Like, you know what? I'm going to lean into Linen and Flax or your design firm that you chose. And I think that is the best work, when there's a mutual respect for each other's gifts, talents, their eye for design, because you have an eye for design too. And I think why some contractors don't like designers is we have a bad name, because some designers come in there with their heels on and this is how it's going to do. And they almost talk down to them. There's not a respect.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't like that. And I always say, when I feel that coming from the contractor, I'm like, let me just tell you, I'm not that girl. I'm going to respect you, but it needs to be mutual. And we'll respect each other in a humble way. And then it's like, as soon as I get it out in front of it, you know, because I'll show up in my high heels, but I'm not bossing anybody around.
Yeah.
I'm just like, let's kill this together.
Yeah.
So that's
great.
It's huge.
Having a partnership is helpful. Some designers approach a project as if they have to represent the customer.
Yes.
From a quality control standpoint. Years ago, we did a project for a customer that we did our final walkthrough and marked up everything with blue tape and came through and touched up everything and got it really nice and polished. Was good, and we had just wrapped up all our touch-ups, and we came in the next day, and the designer was on her hands and knees looking underneath the toe kicks of the cabinets and marking up all these little areas. Like I was like, you know, we're trying to be really polite, but she was kind of coming in like as if to really start kind of tearing apart our work because she felt that pressure from the customer. I don't think the customer was pushing that either. So anyway, just having that a little bit of a trust, like you're saying.
Yes. You know, and and we'll start to wrap up, but I feel like when you and I have worked together, and I've worked with other contractors as well, I feel like I'm going to have your back. So when the client, sometimes they get a little shifty and shady, and they're like, so do you think he did yes, he did a great job, and they are excellent at what they do. And you always kind of have their back. That is a mutual respect when no one's looking. But it's because it's true. And I know you do that for me. I know that there'll be times when we'll be both in positions. And sometimes the client just wants to let off steam and be mad at someone because they didn't move out of the house. But I know that you've got my back. And I think that's a really important piece. It's like we all, at the end of the day, have the client's back. But we also have to have each other's when we're not around, that they are speaking into our work and our work ethic and knowing that, listen, the cake is half baked. Give us a minute. It's not finished, but it will be finished. And I can assure you it'll be finished with excellence. And I think that's super important to both have each other. And I can tell my team, I'm like, all I can say is in that moment, I know he spoke highly of us. And then I hope you feel the same.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes. So let's wrap it up with, what has been your favorite project? It doesn't have to be with us, but like in general, that you were really proud of and you thought, you know what, I did that great. Or I really feel like I did my best work there, or it was great because the relationship with the client and the work, everything just worked. I'll let you think on it.
Yeah, gosh, there's been so many good ones. I loved that the big kitchen, the big basement in Roswell we did.
Oh yeah,
early on
with the little secret trap door.
Yes.
Is that the one you're talking about?
With the
and the sauna.
Yeah, with the vault door and the
That was a great project. And the bar.
The wine room was really cool. So that was a really fun because it was, at the time, it was so different, and it still holds those really unique. It has
held its time.
Unique things that weren't, you know, it's just been really cool. Yes. And it was cool then. It's really cool now. Just those really neat, the bar, the wine room, the dome ceiling, the really,
barrel ceiling.
Yeah, that was a really.
We were really ahead of it on that one. I feel like we really were. And the coolest piece that you did, and a lot of you don't know about this project, is it was a great client. And actually, we ended up, because we did the terrace level so well, we ended up doing the rest of the house. Did we do that second? Yeah, the basement was first.
The main level was next. Yeah, we did
and
that.
then major renovation on the second level, but it was because of the relationship that was built. But one of the cool things we did, I mean, the wine room was spectacular, but remember we had like this really cool wine barrel, and we were like, Daniel, wouldn't it just be cool, like if the spout came out of the barrel and actually wine came out of it? And then, you know, he's like, yeah, I mean, we could do that. You know, and we always say it always costs money, but our clients were like the type of people that they just want it done. They want it done right. And if you would dream and scheme with them, they would just go for it, which is kind of the best client to have. Like went there. I'm actually going to have dinner with them. We're still friends. Like it's been a long time. And the other piece with that project, I think, not only the clients were awesome, but it was timeless, because I think that was like 5 years ago? How long was that?
Yeah, that was maybe close to 10 years ago.
No kidding. You could walk through that terrace now and it could still be ahead of design. I think that's what's really cool about classic design. It stands the test of time.
Yeah.
What was your worst project? No, you can't say that.
No, yeah.
You can't say that. I will say on a personal note, a lot of you know that I had a fire in our home, and I called Daniel, and I was so emotional. I was building my home office, and I was so excited. And it was like the week that it was supposed to be done. We were like 2 days away from completion. It was not with Daniel. I was trying to do it on the cheap, and I paid for it with a fire. But I called him to come over, and the ashes were still, it was still like burning. When you came over, like the day after. You were so sweet. Man, I was like, what do I do? And he was like, what do I do? I think I was crying. How fast? Because I needed this office, which I didn't make it an office. And then he's like, it's going to be great. It's easy. I'm like, there's nothing here. It's ashes. He's like, we got it. It's easy. And I think you set people at ease with you. And I think that's the type of contractor you need, because I don't only recommend you, but I used you, and I used him because it's an emotional process. When people are in your home, you're inviting people in, you are letting them bring strangers in, contractors, electricians, plumbers, all these people.
Feels a little vulnerable, yeah.
It's very vulnerable. And I knew when I needed to do this that I was going to call in someone that I trusted, and that he would walk through this process with me. And I think they have to be ready to walk with you, but also walk behind you and trust you as a leader. And you're a great leader, and you're a great man, and you do great work.
Oh,
I just hope that our viewers, whether they're in California or New Jersey, they find someone that they can trust. I think number one is that trust relationship with their contractor for the best outcome.
Yeah, and if they don't know a contractor designer duo, and you are working with a designer and a contractor, get them both in the room together for sure.
Yes, that is super important. Do you think that it is best to have a designer when you do work?
Well, I think it's always best to have outside design help.
Yes.
Just because we can't get out of our own minds. Even the most creative artists and musical artists have a producer that speaks into their work. So
yes.
So I know even a lot of designers
point.
will bring in other designer help to say, hey, I'm thinking about this. So
It's always good to have a creative.
It's always helpful.
Well, thank you, Daniel, for spending the afternoon with us, and I hope you all will love this. And if you have any questions, put the questions in the comments, and we can go into comments and we can answer those questions that you might have that maybe we missed. I think we covered a lot of ground, and we look forward to chatting with you again on Chatting with Chaz. Also, make sure you subscribe. There's a little button here. Press subscribe, follow us, because we're going to have lots of different topics. Follow us on Chatting with Chaz. You can check out our Instagram for updates on different episodes, and also follow us at Linen and Flax Co. We're looking forward to hanging out with you and chatting a little bit more of all the things. Again, Daniel, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk soon. Was it fun?
Fun.
All right. We'll talk soon.